Mr. Chair, you are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the City of Annapolis's Environmental Commission meeting of June 22nd, 2022. We are here to connect and build and discuss the priorities of the agenda and the priorities of the commission, and promote and do some outreach for our missed vacant seats. So welcome, everyone. If we want to just go down a group and just introduce yourself, and I'll go first. My name is Randy Rowell. I'm the acting chair of the Environmental Commission. Allison, you want to go next?
Sure. Allison Colden, Vice Chair, Ward 7.
Bill O'Leary, Ward 2, Commissioner member.
Ann Stevenson, also Ward 2.
Jeremy Hansen, a member, Ward 5.
I think that's all of us.
All right. Okay, so if we could look at, if we've all had a chance to glance at the agenda, can we all vote to for the approval of the minutes from last month?
I move to approve the minutes as written. Thanks, Racine.
Second.
This is Paul calling me. I think he probably wants the link somehow, text to his phone probably, if I had to guess.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you. And we have a vote, I'm sorry, I missed that. We had a vote to approve the minutes, correct?
Yes,
Aye.
and it was seconded. I say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay. So those will be accepted, and moving right along. Now, these were number 4, our reports from our committees, from members. I'm assuming that with our new, from our last meeting, we will be reporting from those areas. Does that sound correct for everyone? Or are we going to just stick to just some other reports style?
Mr. Chair, I have a report that I can share on the water quality priorities. So one of our water quality priorities is the sediment and erosion control standards, and just basically working on those. I just wanted to let others on the commission know that I did receive some correspondence from Alderman Savage about continued issues at the Parkside Preserve project. This was something that was also discussed at this afternoon's Environmental Matters Committee meeting. But basically, there have been, since the last time we discussed this at our commission, several additional citations written, again, for reliable contracting and additional violations, which Alderman Savage noted in several site visits that he has had in recent times. And I do believe that there are some meetings scheduled for later this week. As we know, it is raining, or will rain pretty hard tonight. And I think folks are going to go back out either tomorrow and or Friday to keep an eye on the sediment and volume of stormwater coming off of that site. But since the sediment and erosion control standards are part of our priorities, I just wanted to flag that one of our issues that we have weighed in on several times already in the past continues to be an issue. And there may be some continued need for our commission to weigh in on that. So quick update.
Thanks. And I wondered, Allison, I felt like one of our big takeaways from some of those discussions was to work with the Department of Public Works to update their site visit checklist and their process, and to sort of bridge some of the gaps. And I wonder where that's going to be with all of the changes in leadership, but maybe it won't be so bad if the city manager is moving back to Public Works. But I sort of wonder how you all are feeling about that. And like, if it's clear who we can follow up with right now.
Sure, I can offer just a couple thoughts on that. So I do know that the inspection checklist was updated and they are using that. I believe that Jackie worked on that with Director Johnson while he was still here. But I think the concern is that that inspection checklist is not resulting in the types of follow-up that we would expect. So I think there are some additional next steps needed, but basically what it comes down to is this is issues with enforcement of the existing standards, not considering whether additional standards or changes are needed beyond that. Like the immediate issue is enforcement of the existing code. And so that's something I think we would have to take up with either I think there's an acting director of DPW right now, or maybe all the way up to the city manager.
Okay, so is there something set yet, or are we still wanting to try to maybe get something more set in stone as far as that relationship or how things transpire?
Well, I think we can do a couple things. We had at one point requested a site visit or a walkthrough with Alderman Savage, and I know that there was a lot of sensitivities at the time, and so we were, basically asked not to come. I don't know how to put that, but there were a lot of sensitivities, so that didn't really work out. So I think I personally might try and take a walk around the perimeter tomorrow, obviously not entering the property itself, but just to put some eyes on what folks are talking about. And I would, welcome anybody who wants to, participate if we want to try and coordinate that together. And then I think maybe just, re-emphasizing maybe in the past we have sent letters to council. Maybe we need to also reiterate our concerns about this project to other members of city staff and loop them in. I don't know if anybody else on the call has other suggestions. I think in the future we can look at and suggest changes to the code which may limit the discretion and may make some of these violation responses more mandatory and make those recommendations to council. But I think that would be like a longer term project that we would need to do some research on and then make a specific recommendation.
Okay. We'll add that to action steps. I think that's a good thing to keep stay on top of and keep chipping away at and come to some type of agreement there. I think it would be worthy. Who would be the lead contact you think on coordinating that type of discussion with? Would that be Jackie, you think?
Yeah, I think we could start through Jackie, or if Racine is listening in and she has any other suggestions on who might be the best person for us to try and get in touch with at the city. But I think we would start with Jackie.
Right now, I don't know where everything stands with David Gerald moving back to DPW. Right now, there's an interim director at DPW, Marsha Patrick. And I don't know how well informed she is about this specific topic. So we could start with, I'd say Jackie, and Jackie will hand it off to whoever the right person is to hand it off to.
Thank you, Racine. Anybody else want to add? Okay, go ahead.
I have a few technical difficulties, sorry. I might also suggest maybe with the job transitions and things, if we could get on David Gerald's calendar now to come to the committee meeting, say in August or something after the transition happens, maybe that would at least lock in a time on the calendar.
And when you say committee meeting, which meeting are you talking about?
I meant this one, that was my commission meeting. And we often take off sometime in the summer, so that might not work out with your schedule, but I think we were really effective when we invited Director Johnson to come and brief us a couple of times. And so I wonder if that's a tool in the toolbox we could use again for this topic.
And maybe depending upon, and when we dig in, like if we were ready with our recommendations at that meeting, I think that would be a good conversation back and forth, not just a briefing, but also presenting our recommendations on improving the enforcement issues that we've seen. Just gave myself a lot of work to do.
Yeah. So do we want to add that to some type of task or action steps, or just want to just make note of that and keep it in the minutes? We can just stay on track of that.
What I can do, Randy, is add it to the task leads list that we made at our last meeting, and maybe that's a document where we can capture these action items as they emerge.
Yeah, I was trying to find that document. If you could maybe send it or share it in that Google Drive where the minutes are kept. I just put the priorities in there as well because I looked in there and they weren't there unless I'm looking at the wrong folder. And that way we can add some, like you said, we can add things there as far as action steps and things like that.
While you're making note of that, I can give one development update and one strengthening the AEC update, and that one with Randy. And maybe Bill can chime in, but we got some really detailed information from Gerald Weingrad about the Forest Drive development, and he provided a lot of information, which essentially means that Racine and Jackie's very thorough forest conservation and stormwater review of those plans are sort of null and void because the plans don't include all of the site work that needs to happen as part of the development. So we have an action item to write a letter to the Planning and Zoning Department to just make sure that the forest conservation and the stormwater review happens again after the full site development plans are in place, so that they don't, because at the moment it sort of doesn't include a road, which it needs to include. So of course that's going to impact the tree canopy and the stormwater on site and all of the work that Racine and others folks have already done to review the plans from an environmental perspective. So I think we just need to make sure that we get another crack at the plans the next time around. And I think Racine, in that letter, we could also remind them that we're not sort of in the loop on where developments are in the process because we don't see that monthly spreadsheet anymore. And it sounds like that they haven't given you any additional information about when that spreadsheet's going to get approved or reinstituted. And I wondered, Racine, what you thought about you and Jackie sharing any plans that you were required to review with us. So, since we don't see that spreadsheet, we're not going to know what to look at unless someone tells us.
Right.
Do
I
we know
can-
do we know when that spreadsheet stopped being shared? How long ago that was?
It was back in November 2021 is the last one that I see was done. I don't remember, I forget when Sally left, but it probably coincides with her leaving, or she may have it may have sort of fallen by the wayside as she was leaving, and passing information along to other people. I can absolutely share the plans that we are given for developments. Absolutely. We don't, that spreadsheet was a really good spreadsheet because it included everything. I mean, from single family developments to, big multi-unit developments. The only thing that I would be able to update you on when I am notified are the larger developments that Jackie and I have to take a look at and make some comments or ask questions about. But I absolutely can share that with you when I get them.
Okay, so we'll make a note of that.
And I think it doesn't hurt to have us ask for the spreadsheet again. I can imagine that everybody is missing it,
Yeah, I sent an email to Mr. Laplace, and I didn't get a response, and I just chalked that up to, he's just probably got a lot on his plate settling in and figuring out, what he's doing and what direction he's going to go in with planning and zoning. So right now, I don't think anyone is working on that spreadsheet. So if you want to send a request to him, I say go ahead. That would be a good idea.
Cool. Okay, and who was the point of contact that we were planning to send that letter to? Was it just the city itself, or was it a specific person?
I think we would send it to the lead on that project in planning and zoning, as well as the department chair. Isn't that what we normally do for those kinds of letters?
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering if you knew the specific person.
I don't remember who the specific person is on this project. Racine might.
Okay.
In planning and zoning,
On this particular project,
the
whatever.
Willows at Forest Drive.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know of a lead. I know that Cynthia takes a look at everything from the critical area point of view, and Tom takes a look at it, and Brian takes a look at it. As far as who leads in planning and zoning on these different developments, I don't know.
Okay, we may want to try to figure who that is, if there is even a person.
I think Tom
Tom Smith
Smith
is
is
listed.
a great source of information. You
Sorry, Racine, I jumped in on you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, I interrupted you, but yes, Tom is listed as the contact on eTrack-It.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else there? Anybody want to?
And just to circle back around, Racine, did you and Jackie update your comments on that project after finding out that the plans were incomplete? Are you hanging tight?
No, because this was the first go round for reviewing the plans. And I don't know what percentage, like whether this is a 60% design or a 50% design. And so the design, I don't think, was totally complete. And like it showed the areas where the stormwater management BMPs are going, but it didn't show specifically where they're going, just the general area. So we sent out comments and questions, and they have to get back to us with answers on any kind of questions or comments that we made. And then we go back with them if we have more comments. So I don't think this is the end of the review process as far as we go.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else want to share there? Mm-hmm.
Well, Randy, you and I can also give an update on the strengthening the AEC section. Randy and I had a meeting with a number of city staffers about recruiting to the AEC and how they were seeking volunteers for boards and commissions, and in particular, how they were trying to recruit more volunteers from different communities and seek more diversity on commissions. I think we had a fruitful conversation, and we have some follow-up items with a couple of community organizations that we could reach out to. But I don't know, a big takeaway for me, Randy, was that the sort of challenges that we have and the goals that we have are shared by all boards and commissions and shared by the city staffers who are working to recruit. And it doesn't sound like they have like a comprehensive plan to include, you know, younger people or, you know, to serve or like, yeah, so we can be a guinea pig trying out new things, and the things that we try might work for our commission and might work for others, but and there are some sort of comprehensive things that they're doing, like simplifying the application form, which may help us in recruiting or make it seem a little less intimidating. But it didn't sound like, you know, there's no easy answer from them, and certainly a lot of willingness to support us. But I sort of left feeling like they were ready to support us, but we would have to sort of lead in the recruiting efforts.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I did talk to CATV about possibly helping us get out some type of commercial, 1 to 2, 3 minutes long, just explaining what the commission is, what it does, what our goals are, and what it takes to be a member. I think that with some music behind it and in the right background, it could serve to reach as far and wide, much further and wider than, you know, cast a wider net. So yeah, I think that's something we'll stay on top of and keep in communication until those slots are filled. And the commission members here are also more than welcome to add to that planning effort. If anybody has ideas or people that want me or Allison to reach out to or talk to and locate, please feel free to share those groups and organizations or other community meetings that go on in the community. I really like to get a nice flyer that somebody could do. I don't know if the city has staff that's willing to volunteer to create a flyer for our efforts. That just has the same effect, something that really is tailored towards attracting a younger population and stuff like that. And so we'll continue with that.
Yeah, took it, Randy, that we're supposed to make a flyer that they'll hand it out for us.
Well, if anyone here knows anybody that makes flyers or anything like that, please touch base with us so we can get that flyer going. Maybe we could put it in the Google Drive and get, everybody can look at it and we can review it for our next month's meeting. We also talked about, having somebody on the commission that was both English and Spanish speaking. And also has some environmental backgrounds if possible too. So that way that person could then be somewhat of a liaison to some of our Hispanic populations in the city. And I think that was a great idea. So
Yeah. I thought that we might invite that man that Laura connected us with, Abel Olivo, to our next meeting. So I think that I forwarded his information to Allison, but can make sure that everybody else has it too, because he sounds like he might be works with an interesting organization and could hopefully connect us to some local folks who volunteer with him.
Yeah, I'll maybe me and Allison, we can put together an email and invite them out to our next meeting to talk about that. I think it's a great idea too.
Thanks.
And I'll just report out. Are we done? Is that it? Okay. I'll just report for myself. Just recently I've been working with. We just recently had a conference for the Chesapeake Community Modeling Program biannual conference. I was on the steering committee for, and it went great. And Jeremy as well played a role there. The conference went great, and we had several different sessions on many different topics. I think that was a great conference. Also, I'd like to add some grants discussions to our discussions too. Just about grants that people are working on or aware of, or that relevant to our work. I think that could also be a good discussion to just have. And working with Eric Lashinsky with his outreach plan for water access in the city. Something I also had a meeting on, and just continuing to make those discussions. National Geographic Vision Works has a summer photography program for encouraging nature photography and nature engagement for underserved populations in the city. So that's also something I was working on, helping provide them with participants for that. I was a part of a Father's Day event Sunday, which was really good. It was outside of the city limits, so it was in the 21409 area of Annapolis, but near Cantlers. I don't know if anybody's ever familiar with that area. Cantlers restaurant, but
Very nice place.
yeah. But that's where where I grew up at, in that area. So we had a big celebration at the Brownswoods Park field for Father's Day. It was pretty great. I've been talking to some people about waste management projects. When we had the meeting with the city and the Waterways Cabinet, they announced that they were going to be, I don't know if it's happened yet or not, but there's no dumping zone in the area, in the waterways. So just looking at ways we can try to get some minority-owned companies to possibly build up or create, entrepreneurship business models that would be more dumping areas in those areas, so that people could have somewhere to let out their waste in their boats safely. And so with them passing this new legislation, I just felt like in replace of that, there should be more areas that people can dump, since you're creating a more of a red zone for no dumping. So something I was thinking about. And also just, working with 5 priorities, and we'll probably touch on this a little later on in the meeting, but I think we have everybody pretty much situated. Allison, is everybody situated somewhere, you think?
Yeah, so we've got everyone assigned to at least one task area. Yeah.
And I just want to take this moment to thank Allison for being in person today at the meeting for environmental matters. Of course, I was all ready, got on my laptop and realized it was in person. So thank you. I really appreciate that. And we'll be trying to make those a regular occurrence, because I feel like that's an important role. Also involving in our efforts for outreach, places like Annapolis Green Drinks, what they're doing. Maybe even having some type of outreach event with them, specifically for finding our members for our commission. Anyone else want to report out as far as committee members, Bill or Jeremy?
Sure. So I did meet with a couple of folks from the Naval Support Activities Department in regards to liaisoning with the Naval Academy. And I met with a woman named Zoe Johnson, who's the Community Planning Liaison Officer, and also a gentleman named Colin Casey. He's the Acting Environmental Division Director for the Naval Support Activities, and they're responsible for the Naval Academy itself, and also for Greenberry Point and the whole naval station over on the other side of the river, as well as the USNA dairy farm in Gambrels. So we went over a number of topics. We started with recycling, and basically they're subject to Navy and DoD regulations, which require recycling bins everywhere and mandatory recycling. So I was happy to hear that, because when I was last on the yard several years ago, that was not the case. So stormwater management, I had mentioned to them that when I had met with them also a number of years ago, that they had a large underground stormwater management system that they were hoping to implement. And they said that the funding for that had never been provided, but it has now reached a higher level of priority for the Naval Academy. And so they've developed a resilience plan that plans out to the year 2100. And it, of course, includes stormwater management and has prioritized an upgraded stormwater management system for what they call the upper yard, which is everything basically above Hospital Point. And they coordinate with the city and the sea level rise task force. And I'm sorry, I never transcribed my notes, so I'm just kind of jumping around here. I apologize for that. Let's see. Talked briefly about tree canopy. They have a natural resources department within the NSA, and they basically do a 1-for-1 tree replacement program. Whenever there's a tree that needs removal, they're required to replace it, and they do. We also talked about invasive species. There are some invasive species on the yard itself, like English ivy, and especially those walls that border King George Street. And they've when they have the manpower, they go on invasive species removal excursions. They said that there is an awful lot of invasive species over on the Greenberry Point side. Energy conservation. They're hoping to do a solar project for the military housing that borders Taylor Avenue, and that I guess that's Gate 8 area. They also are upping the percentage of their vehicle fleet that's electric, and they're installing charging stations in those housing areas. And for the support building on the naval support section over on the other side of the river, they're looking into installing a geothermal for their support building. They did a whole study on College Creek, from the mouth of the Severn all the way up to Route Boulevard, looking for public water access opportunities, the entrance park, looking at their rowing facility and how it needs some work done, not only for sea level rise, but also just because it's aging. There's also a utility bridge that runs parallel to the vehicle bridge across College Creek, and that needs to be replaced as well. All of their seawalls were inspected in 2019. They're trying to incorporate seawall improvement plans into their overall resilience plan. We did touch on Greenberry Point and the potential for a new golf course over there. They said it's very early on in that process. They first have to decide whether the Navy would be willing to lease that property to the existing golf course. And if they do decide to lease that property, then the whole process would undergo an environmental impact statement through the Navy. There are developments going on in Greenberry Point. There's a project to build a number of cottages for their rest and recreation for military members all across the service. We also touched on the 3 remaining radio towers. Those are owned by the county, and they are actually quite expensive to maintain and keep safe. And so they were speculating that the county could at some point decide to tear those towers down. I mentioned that on a personal note, when my mother worked at the Naval Academy in the 80s and early 90s, and they were tearing down the other 9 towers. And she lobbied to keep those 3 there because they had osprey nests on them. So that's partly why those 3 towers remain, although they don't serve any function anymore other than to house ospreys. The David Taylor Research Center that's on the Severn River, at the mouth of the Severn River, that entire property was transferred over to the Anne Arundel County Economic Development Commission, and there's a long planned redevelopment of that property, but it to date has had no movement. And the only other thing they mentioned about Greenberry Point was that they don't have the funding or the staffing to operate it as an actual park, but they have long allowed people to use it as a park, and it does get a lot of use. And it was, I guess, a comment that kind of goes back to people being very upset about the potential for a golf course. And so they understand that there's a lot of public interest in it. They get calls all the time from various environmental and civic groups about this proposed golf course. And they're basically just trying to reassure me that it's very, very early on in the process, and not to get too upset when people see construction barriers and tape and the park being closed. People think that they're already constructing a golf course, and that's not the case. There is another smaller development going on there to build those cottages. I did ask if we could have on-site visits to the academy, and they said that that is absolutely possible, and that they would be more than willing to come and join us in one of our AEC meetings. And that is it for my report.
Wow, thank you. Wow, such a very extensive report. And just for the record, I would like to note that I grew up, born and raised from birth to 19 years old in Mulberry Hill, which is less than a mile away from all of those locations named. And we, for fun as a child, we used to hop the fence and go on to the Navy spaces and get chased off by the MPs. You know, that was like our fun as a child.
I bet.
Yeah, but yeah, all of that area is very close to me. My father actually is the president of our neighborhood community, and he's also is a member of the David Taylor Center's community league thing they have. But yeah, I spent a lot of time in the area, David Taylor Center, Greenberry Point. You know, my first job was at the Naval Academy as well, golf course. Those towers you spoke of, my family has been changing the light bulbs in those towers for over 5 decades.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty neat. Go ahead, Allison. Yes.
Bill, you guys had a very, very extensive meeting there, so thank you for all that information. I was just wondering, Randy, I know that you have been involved in the MIRR project with the city and the academy, and I was just wondering, maybe I would love to take them up, as Bill said, on their offer to come talk with the commission, and I wonder if the conclusion of that process might be a good time for them to come talk to us. But I was just wondering, Randy, if you had any idea like how long that project is expected to continue, or should we ask to speak with them sooner?
I think
Allison, what are you asking? I mean, this is Jackie. I am project leader for the city on the MIRR. And so what do you need to know?
How much long, like what's the timeline for getting to prioritizing projects or things like that?
Okay, so we're just entering that phase right now. I just received yesterday the initial cut. 71 critical assets were identified, and I received the initial cut of 35. And the city, county, and NSA, which I always deal with Zoe, she's my counterpart, are going to meet next week with Stantec to start whittling down how we might prioritize those initial projects. They would like to get them down to 10 that they would flesh out further and identify some funding sources for us. We also will determine how we will involve other stakeholders in that process during that meeting. Today I spoke with Dan Neese, who's the acting director of the Resilience Authority, and Joanne Throw of Throw Environmental, who's supporting him in that role. And they're going to listen in on that meeting I have with the other 2 jurisdictions to, to understand how we are prioritizing and what's important to us. Because some of these projects that we identify may end up getting bounced to the Resilience Authority to find funding. So once we, I think once we have that meeting, I'll mention that the commission is interested in taking a look at some of these critical assets and weighing in on the prioritization.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. I think that would be great. And I think also there may be some other organizations or groups who could contribute to ones that may fall further down on the list, but still are related to significant assets. So playing that sort of matchmaker role, I think would be something that we could probably help with as well.
And so the rest of the timing on that project is they believe they'll start drafting their final report and recommendations by this fall. That grant was supposed to run through September, but we extended it through January. We believe that we'll have a final report and recommendations and the 30% design on our traffic signalization by fall. And we won't have to wait till January, but it gives us extra time. Randy, unmute.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Allison. Does that kind of give you get what you need, Allison?
Yeah, we're just filling up our agendas for the next couple meetings. So yeah, I've got that down. Thanks.
Sounds great.
Oh, sorry. We also touched on the Navy Marine Corps Stadium, which is not owned by the Navy, but by the NAAA. So it's a nonprofit organization. And so they don't have jurisdiction over that property, but I live a block from it. So I'm always complaining about it, as you all know, about the candy throwing, which COVID kind of put a stop to that, but I'm hoping it doesn't come back. But there's other issues for the stadium. I'd love to see recycling for large events there. There's an invasive species there. There's an inadequate amount of trash cans for the property and things like that. And they said to take all that kind of those questions up with the gentleman whose name escapes me at the moment, but I've talked to him a number of times.
All right.
Bill, his name is escaping me too, but he's our across the street neighbor. So I'll connect with my husband and jog my memory and let you know if you don't have it in your email.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything else to share out? Okay.
Randy, do you want me to provide some information that there's a few things that people may not know about that I can update you guys on?
We have, yeah, that you could do that now, or as far as number 6 on our agenda, we have a report on the MIR project, which I assume you would be reporting out on. So you can do that now. You can just wait till then to do both of those. But
Okay.
Your call.
Well, I already gave you a little bit on the MER. Some people have been that are in this group have been involved in some of the stakeholder groups, some of the small groups, and large group interviews, and so that process is over now. As I said, they took a first cut at our critical assets and things we might develop projects around, and that's where we are right now on that. I mentioned the Resilience Authority of the City of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. There has been for quite a time an offer extended to an executive director or a director of the Resilience Authority. And that person was a little nervous about the upcoming election and security around the position and whether that position could actually be made a county position so as to preserve certain benefits, including pensions. So the county has been working that through its county council process, making that position an actual county position. And so while that process is working its way through, that's why we brought on Dan Neese, who has worked both with the county and the city and Charles County and Queen Anne's County, all on resilience projects. And he's really, his background is in resilience financing through the University of Maryland. So he's the acting director for 9 months. And as I mentioned, Joanne Throw Environmental, who also helped the city and all these other counties and cities with their resilience planning. She's supporting him in that role. They are going to form the board of directors. They've been asking me and city manager and other people in the city for recommendations for people to be board of director members of the board and also part of advisory committees. And we provided them with different people's names that they can choose to reach out to. And they also, I believe they're going to put out an advertisement for people who want to be on the board of directors. So their task is to form the board, put in some institutional and administrative procedures for standard operating procedures. The board will then create the bylaws, and then they will start looking at some initial identifying projects. And the MER will help feed that process of identifying projects. So the county is paying Dan and Joanne for a 9-month period to do all of this. And by then we hope to have the director in place and to hit the ground running in deciding on projects to take on and how to finance them. So it's Resilience Authority and the MER. In the FY23 budget that was just passed and takes effect on July 1, I was approved to receive a $65,000 contract to hire a consultant to help me develop and implement an electric mobility plan for the city of Annapolis. And that would, a large part of that is converting the fleet over to electric. The city fleet, the cars we use for inspections, et cetera, and to get around, as well as the public works, some of the public works fleet, because there are trucks that we can put in as others age out. We would also work with the transportation department on their on electric buses, small buses like the circulator, as well as the larger buses, and then even take a look at the police department. So, and then that person would identify the resources, the needs, start, develop a strategy and start to implement that strategy, including finding funding, grants, et cetera, for me. So I have to develop an RFP, bid this out. I'm gonna jump on that, try to get that going in the next couple of weeks. It's one of those things where I've stopped and started things with our EV fleet. I've worked with BG&E on installing chargers all over the city and in other places in with the county. But it's something I stop and start constantly because we're so understaffed. So I requested this one-time funding source, and it was approved. Let's see what else. You're talking about trees. There's a group called, I don't know, some of you may have heard of them. What was the woman's name? Wheatley, Barbara Wheatley, and some other women. They came to the city a few months ago with the proposal that they wanted to start a group called Save Our Trees, aimed at mostly invasive English ivy removal of off of trees. You know, the idea, preserve our existing large tree canopy. Not, you know, of course, planting trees is great, but you want to save the big trees with the tree canopy. And so I helped them along with some other the staff in the mayor's office, helped them get started and put together, and got a volunteer form put together so they could work in the city parks and the city right-of-ways. And they had their first kickoff English ivy removal in Truxton Park last weekend, and it apparently went very well. And I think they're going to try to do this every other week. They're working on Truxton first, try to save all the trees in Truxton Park. And then another group came to me, and oh gosh, what's the lady's name? Oh, escapes me at the moment, but she wanted to start community gardens, and you know, address food desert issues and try to get gardens in every community. And so I helped her, you know, connect with groups other gardening groups that can help her, and with HACA to work with on the HACA properties and getting community gardens there, and with church groups, et cetera. So I think they're off and running as well. So these aren't city programs, but these are city partnerships with outside groups that are probably forming into nonprofits.
Hey, could I interrupt you and just ask, are any of these lovely volunteers interested in also serving on the AEC?
I think it's a great idea. You know what? Make a note right here. I will pass that on to them. That's a great idea, Ann. And also, Randy, I think having a few minutes at a Green Drinks event will be great. I mean, they always feature someone or some business, but they oftentimes have asked me to come and just, you know, talk about something for 5 minutes that we're doing. And so I would reach out to, do you know Maggie Hughes? She replaced Elvia there.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
can-
talked to her,
you do, Randy?
last week. Yeah, I talked to her last week. Yep.
Okay, great. Just have like 5 minutes to say, the Annapolis Environmental Commission is looking for members and this is what's entailed and who to reach out to. 'Cause it's Hillary. But so that, I think that would be a great forum to tell people. A lot of people don't know about the boards and commissions and what they do.
Yeah, totally agree. I will see what their next event is, see if we can get on the agenda.
And you can even ask Maggie to put it in their newsletter.
Okay. Once we get that flyer done.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking, Randy, we could also send it to Suzanne at WSA and ask her. They have I think they have a list that's specific to Annapolis watershed stewards.
Yeah. Bill, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have anything else?
Let's see, anything new and exciting. We're working, and Allison heard some of this today. The city is working on a zero waste policy for the city events that we put on, like parades, concerts, memorials, etc., art shows, where the city would be required to not use plastic bags, plastic anything, use everything compostable and recyclable. And then the idea came about because Alderman Savage was thinking about introducing legislation to require anyone having an event in the city of a certain size to be a zero waste event. That would require some code. The Office of Law recommended that we start with a policy because it would be easier than to do a code change, but that may be something that Alderman Savage is still considering. So Racine put together a draft zero waste policy with the help of Felicia Nolan, who's our event planner. And we're taking a look at that right now. We can share that with you when it gets in a little bit better shape. Okay.
Bill, go ahead. You had something?
Yeah, Jackie, could you send me the contact information for Barbara about the Save Our Trees?
Absolutely. We'll do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And another good contact, Randy, would, any of those associations like the Esports Civic Association are good people to send an email and ask them to get in their newsletter about the need for commission members. Because I don't think we have someone from Eastport right now.
That'd be me.
Oh, that would be you. Okay, great.
Yeah.
We do. Okay, but in other areas where we're looking, specifically in wards where there's not representation on the commission, if there's an HOAs, you guys could get the word out to. I've just spread it wherever you can.
You said that was the Eastport, what group was that?
Civic Association,
Okay.
they have an Eco Action Committee. They're pretty active. The mayor made me go speak to them about his electric mobility plan so I could get beat up about his ferry.
Do you, if you could just, when you can, just send me if there's a point of contact there.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
And I just want to take this moment for the record to say that Jackie, you are killing it out here.
Oh, thank you. I
Super
try.
busy, man. It makes me go to sleep. I can only imagine what your pillow talk is like. It's probably like grants and numbers and
Oh, no, I
proposals.
don't. That stuff stays in the office, man. We just leave it behind.
I hear you.
Um,
Well, you're
today
doing
I got
yeah.
Thank you, Randy. Today I got so beat up over Parkside Preserve, and you guys are probably hearing about that. There's been a lot of rain, and there was, the things that they're doing there meet our sediment and erosion control permits, and they're pumping water out of their settling ponds to try to make extra capacity, and they have a flocculant in there to try to hang on to the small particles that have been discharging from the site, but they've had 6 violations that amounted in citations over the past couple of months, and it's supposed to rain hard. It hasn't done it yet tonight, so I'm holding my breath, hoping that they did everything they could there today to prevent more discharges into Quiet Waters Park. But even if they're meeting their sediment and erosion control requirements per the permit, that doesn't let them off the hook when they have a discharge. They
Right.
have to take extra measures if those measures are not good enough. And any discharge that goes off that site, even if it doesn't reach another water body, is considered a violation, a pollution discharge, because it has the potential to pollute a waterway. And that was made clear to Reliable Contracting by MDE when I was there on a site visit. So I have a meeting with Alderman Savage and perhaps other members of the environmental committee, and the city manager and assistant city manager on Friday to find out what has been going on. I've been gone a lot for the last 3 weeks on several trips. So I have not been in close contact with the acting director, but we need to find out what's going on there. If it's an inspector problem, maybe if someone's not doing their job, we need to find out why. Reliable Contracting hired their own third-party inspector, which should have kept them in check. And then our inspector follows. Everything was going good there for a while, but we've had a lot of rain in the last few weeks. So I don't know who's fallen down on the job. Oh, and also in the city budget, Public Works was approved for a second compliance inspector, environmental compliance inspector. So that should help with inspection on development sites. And they were approved for a kind of mid-level manager position to help with restoration projects and management of development sites. Not necessarily an engineer. I have to go back and find their job description for that, but they don't have anyone like that right now. And the stormwater engineers are overloaded and the project design engineers are overloaded. We don't have someone just managing projects and moving them forward and really watching the compliance end of things.
Yes.
So hopefully those two new positions will help a lot. And Sam Bryce, who some of you may know, who's a civil engineer, he is retired. He finally retired while I was gone. And so that position is open as well. And the second stormwater engineer position was filled. And the woman who has filled that position will start in August. So, and if you don't know, David Gerald, our city manager, will be moving back as the director of public works in July. Mike Malinoff, who was our director of planning and zoning and is currently our assistant city manager, will move into the city manager position. And I believe that the person they made the offer to for assistant city manager has accepted it. This is a real assistant city manager, not like Lynn Farrow. She wasn't really educated and experienced in an assistant city manager role. This is a person who's actually served in that position and has all the credentials and experience. So the name has not been released yet, so I don't know if has accepted the position. So there's a lot of management shifting around going on right now. I'm hoping that, with filling all of these new positions, our development sites will be in much more better compliance, and our restoration projects will move forward more quickly.
Yeah. Awesome. And I've always, kind of had this underlying sentiment for advocacy and awareness for our public housing communities. Do you have any update on the flooding issue that I had sent a recording out for the issue down in Robinwood?
Oh, Robinwood. Director Johnson did respond to you. I saw that. He wanted to do a study of that area.
Right. But someone else has said that, it may be wise to not make it so much more, maybe look at some immediate fixes versus something
Who said that? Is somebody in Public Works?
No, this was on that email thread. I can forward it to
Oh,
you.
okay, yeah.
It was Alderman Savage.
Savage.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there may be some really obvious things. I wonder if something's broken or just something's failed. I mean, that can be looked at, but there may have been, the part of the reason they do a study, and they need to move it up on the spectrum of their activities that they've made priorities, is they need to look at they do like a whole hydraulic, and hydrologic study to see where the flow is, the intensity, where it's going, what it's caused by. They look at the topography, and that determines how best to fix the problems there. Now,
Right.
Robinwood is also slated for redevelopment, but it's not immediate. So I know that may be one of the considerations is you don't want to go in there and put in a lot of infrastructure if it's going to be all dug out again. But there may be some quick fixes in the interim. So I think that is a good idea, Randy.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, is there a way maybe you or someone or me or someone, we can look at every single public housing community in the city, because they all have, as it relates to its environmental challenges,
Yeah.
they all have individual unique challenges.
Right.
And I feel like every time we have meetings, every time we have discussions and we talk about the environmental issues, we always talk about places that are predominantly upper class or middle class communities.
So, Newtown 20, that development will have all new stormwater controls in it. And
Yeah,
tree plantings, so every time they redevelop one of these communities, they're really outdated, and most of them predate stormwater controls, or what we would consider stormwater control now, not just curb and gutter. They are the environmental site design comes into play now, and the stormwater controls come into play with all sorts of different BMPs. So Robinwood is, I think, I don't know if it's next. I know that we have the Choice Neighborhoods grant to look at Harbor House and Eastport Terrace. That's all going to be redeveloped. So all of that will have new stormwater controls. And I'm trying to remember if Robinwood becomes before those or after those two. But all of them in the next 4 years will be redeveloped.
Yeah, I know you all have heard me throw this term out there plenty of times, but I still consider public safety to be an environmental issue in some regards in some of these public housing communities. So it's a little bit further than just some of the stormwater issues, but looking at things like mold and food.
Oh yeah, well that's one of the reasons.
Also is food insecurities, as well as food deserts, mold, and what was another one? But yeah, just so it's
energy efficiencies,
yeah.
And putting in solar microgrids. We're looking at EVs for them, EV bikes, EV scooters, and some EV cars dedicated to some of the HACA properties with Lyft drivers. So we're looking at it from building performance standards. That's all getting incorporated into the HACA buildings. Some of them have box units, has air conditioning, and like lots of mold, and the electrical systems aren't good. All of that's getting updated.
Cool. So I'll just be mentioning that,
Okay.
here and there. And if you have any other critical, input that you find or hear about, I'd love to just hear about it. That way I can just, be updated on things.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
In regards to the public housing, and in particular the food issue, I'm pleased to hear that more civic groups are getting interested in creating more gardens here. And, Joel and his wife who started Grow Annapolis. But Randy, in most of the areas, the soil's probably not sufficient to grow vegetables. But I think people like Homestead Gardens would help donate a little bit. But my overall point is, in those areas where there's the food deserts, can we find a couple of concerned people, generally it's the women and the moms, who could start putting some community gardens to work in the space they have.
Yeah, or greenhouses. Yeah, I wasn't, I would assume that, some greenhouses effect would be probably a lot better in an urban environment like that. So maybe that's an opportunity to put up different greenhouses that would offer.
Well, I don't know how much a greenhouse costs, but it costs something. And just doing outdoor gardens, other than supplement it with the soil, is a very low cost way to get growing. And it would be wonderful to see those areas have community gardens. I tried to do mine here on Northwest Street, and not real big adoption, but I think in an area where someone who's in the community could take the lead on it, it would be great to see more stuff growing locally. And so I obviously I don't have many connections in those housing projects or housing areas, but that's something in the public housing sector, it'd be nice to find a few people who were willing to take the lead on that.
That's, Paul, that's what I encourage this group. I gotta find her name in a minute. Of the people that want to create community gardens, I encourage them to contact HACA and see if they can get, it'd be a great thing to do to get the residents involved in creating the gardens. But it's like, so you have a local fresh food source there. I also put her in touch with some of the churches in Annapolis where I thought that would be a good way to reach people through their churches. And a lot of times the churches have some property where they can have a community garden there. And that's a good group of people to, it's a place where they gather anyway. I mean, they could devote some time after services to gardening as well. So I encouraged her to do it where it makes sense and where people are and where they gather and where they live, especially because a lot of the HACA properties have a lot of open space.
Yeah, I think that, so just looking at where some of that, kind of low hanging fruit stuff is, where just small little things.
I'll find this woman.
Yeah, but I think it's a great, what I really, I won't say don't want or fear, but I don't really want to, I like to work against that sentiment that most of the environmental activities and energy and efforts and time and money and resources and assets are being all dumped into areas like downtown or areas that don't necessarily have a lot of people of color or low income populations.
Well, Ward 1's not a good area for community gardens anyway. There's not a lot of open space.
Well, what was that? I'm sorry.
I said Ward 1 doesn't have a lot of open space anyway. It's the other wards who have more open space for gardens. So I don't think there's any room to put a community garden really downtown.
All right. Okay. Do you want to mention anything on Hawkins Point? I mean,
Hawkins Cove.
it's
Oh,
called
the RFP finally went out on Hawkins
and the
Cove.
Waterways Cabinet.
Yeah, the RFP finally went out last week. Public Works. So it has to be out for, a certain period of time, and then they'll look at bids and make a decision on a contractor who will then do design. So that's where we are right now. Still working on trying to find dredging money to dredge the channel. So that could actually be used for perhaps a water taxi to come pick up people who live in that area, bring them downtown. So you can actually paddle and kayak there. But dredging needs to occur there and in College Creek going up to Robert Eads Park. So we're working on that. I mean, it really should be Public Works to find out the dredging information, but it's kind of me and the harbor master right now. So it's slowly churning along.
So whatever happened with that one grant that you all got? I think it was like 70,000.
No, we got 65,000. Yeah, 65,000 from the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and then the Denker Foundation gave us an additional $65,000.
And what was the result of that? Or it just hasn't
Well,
been
that's the amount that's being bid out right now. To do the living shoreline, remove the bulkhead, do the living shoreline, fix the dock, put in a kayak ramp, remove invasives on the shore, tie the living shoreline into the regenerative stream conveyance system that the Spa Creek Conservancy put in. And that's going to be eaten up right there.
Are you, I assume or really hope that you're looking to get minority, Black or brown owned companies for all of that small construction work for that entire grant?
That's a priority in our bidding process.
Say that again, what?
It's a criteria, a priority criteria in the bidding process.
Well, it's not mandatory though, right?
No, but we give preference to local minority businesses.
So are you outreaching to get those bids from those?
I don't know what Public Works has done. I know they have been in contact with some groups. Some have contacted me. I send them to Public Works. They're handling the bidding process.
Oh, Public Works. Do you know who or Who that person?
Michael Ross is the project lead. He's the stormwater engineer. Michael Rossberg, sorry, Rossberg.
Because I know a lot of those companies exist, but I also know that if you don't send it out to any other groups other than the same ones you have used to usually send them through, you'll never get those minority-owned bids from Black or brown companies. You'll never get that. And then the excuse will be, oh, well, we didn't get any. You know what I'm saying? We didn't get any submitted. But
Right.
unless they're actually being targeted and reached out to and, you know, asked to submit something, that would never happen. So.
I don't know much about government contracting, but just speaking to, you know, casual conversations with friends or people I've learned, I would think, and Jackie may know this, I would think most of the jobs, the projects are listed on the Annapolis website. And thus people just by hitting the website ought to be able to find what potential opportunities are coming up in the near future.
Yeah, that sounds
That's right.
right. I know it. I've never looked for them. I can't say I've never looked for them.
They also, whenever an RFP goes out, a press release is sent out about, you know, something open for bids. So I know a press release is done.
Good. So people just need to get on that mailing list. And if there's a project coming up that fits them, they can pursue it.
Right, but they're not. They're not on the mailing list, and they don't even know of what's going on. So that's why it takes a lot of targeted efforts to identify these groups and make individual relationships to make sure you share information.
Have some more efficient way to do it so that these groups, these organizations and companies are on all solicitations that come to the city, that we need to connect with the website that, you know, the city website, so that they automatically receive the bids. We don't have to do targeted, outreach every single time.
Yeah, I've never. Can somebody forward me the link to that website where that link to where those are all shared at? I've never seen it myself.
Racine, do you know where it is?
I don't know specifically, but I can find out and I'll send a link tomorrow.
Cool.
Yeah, maybe Michael can help you with that.
Yeah, thank you, Racine. And even if I have to share it out myself and be a liaison between
but tell them to stay on it.
minority-owned construction firms and bids for contracts for restoration with the city of Annapolis. If I have to be that broker, I'm more than happy. If nobody's willing to be that broker.
If not, it doesn't have to be just for restoration either. You know, they can receive bids for all kinds of different projects.
Now, is the city required to bid out a certain percentage to minority-owned contractors?
No, I don't think so.
Is that something we maybe can present some legislation for restoration projects from the AEC?
To bid out to a certain percentage.
Well, like you said, there's a preference in the grant for minority.
Yeah, there's a preference.
So
You know, if they could
the city
find,
could have a preference for awarding restoration bids to Black or brown companies. That's what I'm trying to say.
it's in all of our bids, not just, that's what I'm saying. It's not just for restoration projects. It's,
I know,
all
but
bids.
could we put something specific legislation just for environmental restoration contracts?
Well, if they get preference, goes to the rudder.
I'm sorry, you broke up, Paul. What was that?
I can't hear him.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Excuse me if I'm speaking a bit louder, but I want to make sure to get across. If there is a preference for minority contracts across the entire spectrum of Annapolis, the city's purchasing from A to Z, they get preference. I think it's a little bit redundant. We're creating more work and.
Well, it isn't right now. It isn't a preference right now.
Oh,
No, no,
I
it's
thought
criteria.
Jackie said they preference all across the spectrum.
It is. I have to look at a procurement contract and bid and see what it says, but I don't know the exact words they say, if it's preference or we give priority or we give to minority owned, local owned, women owned. They have a list. And it's been a while since I looked at one of them, but I can find it and see what it says. But I know that they look for local minority and women owned businesses. And it's one of the factors, the weighting factors when they look at the bids when they come in.
And I don't think it would be a waste of time, because what it would do for the environmental restoration aspect is it would push for people in the city or people who are working with these restoration projects to target some of these underserved, minority owned contractors. It would enforce them to have to work with those individuals, or at least make them have to go out and present and outreach to those instead of just outreaching to the same old companies. So that's what the
But I would have, but since this is out for bid already, Randy, you should, of companies, you should direct them to the RFP for the city, which Racine will provide for you, but also to get in touch with Mike Rosberg.
Okay, yeah, if somebody could send me that bid, that way I can share it out with groups, I'd be happy to. Again, like, this is kind of what I have been doing in the environmental field. Okay. I've been really trying
so again, I'm going to assign that to Racine to get the, I think Mike might have sent it to me. I haven't had a chance to look at it. If I have it, Racine might have copied you on it, Racine. If you didn't, I will send it to you.
Okay, and I can share it out with some groups, but yeah.
I'll see if Mike sent me something. I don't think he did, but I can reach out to Mike tomorrow as well to get a copy of the RFP.
Okay.
If there's a place on our website, their RFP would be there for everyone to read through. I just have to find out where it is on our website. It's located.
Okay.
Okay.
And you all do understand what I meant by trying to create some type of, I think just in the environmental matters meeting, I think Allison was saying that one of the things that they heard is they want to see us presenting some more possible legislation tips or road mapping. So I think I don't know how to word it right or how to put the wording together to it, and maybe we can all work together on that. But I feel like that may be a worthy cause, even if it takes a while to actually get it.
So, for example, for like your plastic bag bill, if you wanted to redirect it,
was that? I'm sorry, what?
I said, for example, your plastic bag bill. I know this group has talked about it. There was a plastic bag bill introduced about 10 years ago, and then Alderman Savage had a draft he had introduced 2 years ago, but then the consensus was the businesses were being hit so hard by COVID that he withdrew it. It wasn't the time to do it. So if you wanted to pick up where he left off, there's a draft bill out there, and see how you might change it, or ask Alderman Savage if so you're gonna need to find a champion. It's either got to be introduced by the mayor or by one of the city council men or women. So maybe Alderman Savage would be willing to pick it up again, or you could find another co-chair, or another 2 or 3 co-chairs for it.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, we only got about 30 minutes left, so let's try to stay on task here. Thank you, everybody. So
I fall asleep before then, Mr. Chair.
no, we're gonna keep it moving. You need me to wake you up a little bit? I could do some beatboxing. All right, so moving right along, did you have anything to share on Replant Annapolis, Jackie or Racine?
Replant Annapolis is the contract's been signed and it can move ahead. So Suzanne knows that, and she should be recruiting tree troopers to train.
I spoke through email with Suzanne, And what they've done, I'm pretty sure I sent an email to the AEC on the status of where they are, but they have trained their first cohort of tree troopers. And what they're doing is they've got projects in mind, and they are planning those projects through the summer months for installation of trees in the fall. And depending on, I guess, their progress, they may or may not train another cohort of tree troopers in the fall, or maybe early 2023 for additional projects to go in 2023.
And do you have the demographics for those tree troopers that were trained?
I don't, but I can get it.
Okay, yeah, I just want to know how many of them are people of color, black or brown, and what communities they come from, because I want to try to make sure we can encourage to get a very diverse plethora of tree troopers as we can involved with that.
Racine, Suzanne for sure is tracking where the people are coming from what communities. So, and where the projects are set to go in, you know, for her own purposes. So she needs to share those reports with us as well.
Okay.
And,
Okay. With Brian Adams being the lead, he may be a good source I can check with as well, but I'll check with Suzanne on the locations of the projects that they're planning this summer, and on the demographics of the tree troopers.
cool. Thank you, Racine. Let's see. Moving right along. We already did a report for the environmental matters, right, Allison? Did you speak to?
Yeah, so I guess the only thing I'll reiterate, which is something you just brought up, Randy, is that the committee was very interested in strengthening our communication and relationship between the commission and the committee. So they're really interested in us being a standing agenda item on their meetings. So we may need to, they said we could send updates via email if we can't have someone there in person, but it might be nice to try and have representation there, since they seem very keen on working closely with us. They've also requested for some of the items that were on our 2022 priorities that we put together some reports or white papers with some specific recommendations for them. I think they're interested in the topics, but looking for specific direction from us. The ones that were brought up on that specifically were the plastic bag ban and some of the tree canopy stuff. So yeah, so they're interested in working a lot more closely with us. Alderman Arnett even went so far as to suggest we should look at the city code and figure out how to get consultation with the AEC written into code. He mentioned that, for example, the transportation board, anytime there is a project that's going to require a variance or something of the like, it does necessitate the developer or the project lead going to the transportation board before coming to the committee of jurisdiction. So I know in the past we've talked about, you know, how do we get ourselves in a position where we can influence, you know, either development projects or other ideas early on. And I think the suggestion was there is to get ourselves written into the code as a board or commission that needs to be consulted. So that was an interesting sort of concept I think we can explore further. But I think the one thing I want to reiterate that hasn't already been covered was just that strong interest from our council members to have a closer working relationship with our commission.
Thank you very much. And was that it? Was there anything else, Allison, as far as that meeting?
No, I think we've touched on all of the other items that we discussed. So I can send out some additional notes as part. I will include there's in our AEC Google Drive folder, there's an Environmental Matters Committee sort of running notes document. So I will write up the rest of the notes that I have from the meeting in that document for everybody.
Okay, are we able to share our screen on this live? If so, I would like for either me or you to share our screen, Allison, to look at the tasks list where people have been placed at. I don't know if you need a second to pull it up, maybe, or if you want me to pull it up.
So I have that on paper. I wrote that down last time. So I was looking for that when we mentioned it, and I don't know if I ever actually uploaded it.
That's
to the
fine. And I
Google
was
Drive.
looking for it too. And I think, yeah, so for our next meeting, we'll just plan. So we'll put on the agenda, we'll set some time aside to just go back over our roles and our groups that we've assigned ourselves to through our personal interests. And we'll have kind of a report out, shared moment for that.
Randy, I have the minutes from the last meeting where people volunteered which topic they were gonna be working on. Would you like me to share that?
Yeah, I don't know what it looks like, but if it has it on there, yeah. But really, well, that's the May minutes, right?
I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
yes. From the last meeting, yeah, May 25th, I think it was.
Okay, well, we only got like 20 minutes left. I have the May minutes. I think I did. Yeah, you emailed that. So maybe this is something we can coordinate and get it together for our next meeting.
Okay,
That we can have everybody go through, and we'll create like a little sheet, and we'll have them. Everybody can report out, and we'll have like a little actions, deadlines type of, kind of like a little work plan with everybody's tasks and roles there. I think that would be very helpful. That way, each week, each month when we meet, we can just kind of look at the sheet and see where we're at and on track with things and what updates need to be made, etc. Does that sound okay for everybody?
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess I can look at the minutes and determine where everybody's placed, and we'll put that document in the Google Drive. Does everybody have access to the Google Drive where we are housing all of the minutes, and the agendas and all the documents and such? Anybody not have access to it or need the link provided? All right, cool. Okay. I think everything on the agenda has just about been reported out on. I think the DEIJ discussion kind of just got rolled on into some of those other things. So we kind of had it inadvertently, which is always good. But again, I just feel like making that push for incorporating social equity into some of the aspects of environmental restoration, environmental justice, I think is a really good activity to do, good best practice. And it also it's something that we can diligently try to use the legislation power to divert some of the interests or resources into some other areas that it has been for decades lopsided or kind of left out from that. So next steps. All right, so we'll spend this last few minutes, and once we finish this, I think we can just go ahead and adjourn, unless anybody has a problem with that. I know Ann doesn't. This is your last meeting, Ann? Oh, man.
Last official one, but I'm sure I'll be tuning in if we get all of these guests that we talked about today.
Yes.
I want to stay away.
Well, I hate to say it, but we need you, Ann. Such a valuable asset. So thank you so much.
I'm excited to try to do a little more volunteering with my family, and so I'll see you at the community gardens that we'll work on digging.
Yes, yes, please loop me in, or I'll definitely be there. So, action steps. I know that we had, talked about some action steps. So what I'll do is look at minutes, and we'll look at what action steps put in place for our next meeting. I know that we want to have all of the duties listed out and shared out with you all by the next meeting. That's one thing that's on my to-dos. Get that list out to you all so everybody can see where they lie at. Also want to touch base with some of the other city divisions like the planning and zoning, and others to see about, see where things are as far as getting incorporated into those spreadsheets that we used to get. See how we can keep that going. Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, I just wanted to, before we adjourn, I have a few of those action items that I wrote down based on our discussion. Did you want me to go over those again before we adjourn? Okay, great. So for related to Parkside Preserve and water quality in general, I have a task to invite City Manager, soon DPW Director Gerald, to our August AEC meeting. And hopefully that by that point, we would also have some recommendations completed to discuss at that meeting. The next one I had based on Anne's presentation. So Anne, we may need to put this on someone else, but I had to send a request to Mr. Laplace in Planning and Zoning about being added to the development monthly spreadsheet, or to revive the monthly spreadsheet, one or the other, if it no longer exists, and to draft and send a letter about the Willows at Forest Drive development to the planning and zoning staff. So do we need to put somebody on those too?
I'd be happy to do both of those. I feel like I'm halfway there.
Okay, great, thank you.
No problem.
Those are what I had, Randy.
Word.
I'm sorry, Allison, can you repeat that last part about the Willows at Forest Drive? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, so I think we were planning to, based on some of the feedback that we got from Gerald Weingrad and others' own review of some of the materials, sending a quick letter with some AEC comments on that development to planning and zoning. And I'm assuming we would also CC Racine and Jackie on that as well.
Yeah, don't ever forget to do that, because then I get questions and I'm blindsided. So make sure you do. I'm pretty good on my feet. I'm fairly good on my feet, but don't make me dance.
Got it.
And on the subject of Willows, I noticed in E-Tracket, there's a pretty recent letter from Eric Lashinsky to Tom from the comprehensive planning angle. So there's some good points we can maybe repeat in our own letter.
And there's the tree variance letter about the 2 significant trees that they want to take down.
Are you able to share that, whatever you found, Jeremy, with us, or just send me the link or something?
Yeah, I'll save it and put it up on the Google Drive.
All right, cool. All right, folks. Well, does anyone have anything else? Anybody want to share anything else on anybody's plate today?
Thank you, Anne, for everything.
Yeah, Anne, you were great.
Yes, thank you.
Remember,
Gonna really miss you, Anne.
Yes, we are.
We sure are. And thank you for the additional acts of letter writing before you disappear.
Well, no one's as good at letter writing as Allison, but I'll take one last turn, and I'll see you all around Annapolis. And it's been a great pleasure, and I've learned a ton. And I'm excited to work as an environmentalist in other ways with you all. So Looking forward to it. And I think we have lots of leads on new commission members. So fingers crossed.
I love a good reason to get together and have a drink and talk. And so maybe that's something we can have a little get together, maybe for the commission somewhere,
That's good.
somebody's rooftop or something like that.
He's joining the AEC Alumni Association, so
Yeah,
we'll have
feel
to invite
free.
them too.
And you can text me, and that's what Diane and Bevan and all the rest of the alumni do constantly.
We'll try not to do too much of that. Okay, that's good.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much. I'd like to also send a special thank you to CATV for taking the time in their evening to deal with us. So thank you for that. And I hope everybody has a good rainy night. Looks like it's raining hard. This is my favorite time of day, time to go out in the rain. Anybody else go out and play in the rain?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
love it.
Big kid. But it looked like it just started raining. So we hope that all of our sediment controls hold up throughout our city. Hope our floodplain levels stay manageable as we continue to drown into the water as a coastal town here. So, we'll try all we can to continue to fight hard as we possibly can to bring these environmental best practices to light and fruition from a more sustainable standpoint, and throwing in a little equity sprinkle on the top, you know what I'm saying? So just want to say thank you all for taking the time, and thank you. Special thank you also to Allison as well for all your hard work and expertise, and as well. So
Well said.
yeah, what was that?
Well said. We got to keep our climate optimism. So thank you, Randy, for always ending our meetings on a high note. Thanks.
Well, I look forward to continuing to stay in touch with you. And I have a thing, friends are forever. So all right. And thank you, everyone. And on that note, we can have vote to adjourn.
And why don't you take the honors?
Because I was most visibly yawning. I vote to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. I will slam the gavel at this point. And see you all later.